Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. Today, hopefully, we will be posting our final, finished, totally done with this story update to the whole Bike Karen saga, Bike Karen 5, The Reckoning, The Beginning, because now there is a lengthy article supposedly exonerating the young man, telling us about how he is quite literally an angel. I am not joking, that language is in the article, and thus finally proving the Bike Karen wrong. However, as I said in my previous video, the receipts not only show that the young man in question was in the wrong, the Bike Karen did nothing wrong, but it also shows that he was knowingly acting in the wrong, and the receipts in this article are even better. They're even greater to go towards what I was saying earlier, because unlike many people on the internet.com, I have this power of actually being able to read, and I don't just listen to the ramblings of idiots talking about the topic. And a perfect example of this is my analysis of the video that came from the sister, supposedly proving that her brother did nothing wrong, and the evil white racist Bike Karen was in fact guilty, because I actually could see what was on screen. I have this rare Keke Genkai that allows my eyes to work. And when you examine what she showed, what you find is her brother is incredibly guilty. Now, if you guys remember, this whole thing started with a video that was posted to social media that went viral that showed what was maximum worst case scenario, a petty argument between two people in the city of New York over a rentable city bike. But the left wing, being the absolute insane people that they were, decided that the pregnant woman in this video was an evil white racist, and that she in fact walked up to a group of 5 black teens in order to steal a bike from them, because that's definitely what happens, and she tried to weaponize her white tears in order to do so. Now, a lot of these lefties will tell you now, they'll try to gaslight you and say that it was never about the stealing of the bike.
First and foremost, I would like to reiterate that for myself and many others that initially posted about this, we weren't talking about a stolen bike. We didn't care about a stolen bike. It was her behavior.
However, everywhere on social media were accusations that were wrong that accused her of stealing the bike. And then some of them went even further, and they accused her of being an evil white racist who decided that she was going to kill these black men by summoning the white supremacist cops by calling for help. However, if you watch the original video, what you find is she's calling for help because there's 5 young men physically assaulting her on video over a rentable bike. They're swearing at her, they're calling her stupid, they're saying a lot of derogatory things to her, and even though this is a petty dispute over a rentable bike, they're the ones clearly and obviously from the jump being the aggressors. Then she, of course, provided a receipt that showed that she attempted to rent the bike. The receipt matched the serial number in the video, and a lot of conspiracy nut whack jobs got all angry because she didn't want to reveal the time and or the location that this took place. Now, I will point out to the public that she did show the receipts in full, unredacted, to the media outlets. This is how they verified that her rental only lasted about a minute, and then it was redocked, which aligned with her story, and every single article had stated that they verified the receipts from her in the unredacted form, but it was an agreement with her lawyer to not show them. Well, guess what? She has now released the unredacted receipts, and they show exactly what I explained in the previous video. And in contrast to that, we now have this article which shows even more receipts from the young man that further supports the idea that he was in the wrong and he took the bike from this woman, which we see again on the video.
The only reason why Sarah Jane Comrie was able to produce this receipt for this bicycle is because she jumped over this young man standing right here who had his hands on the handlebars, jumped over him, impales herself on his bike, and scans the QR code to begin the ride. How did all of this happen, and how do I know what happened? Because that young man is my little brother.
Now, if you remember, we talked about this video earlier where the sister comes out and she says this pregnant woman jumped across, leapt across, and impaled herself on the city bike and then scanned it in order to take it from her brother. And she talks about how, oh my god, what a bad, evil, white, racist person. Also, take note of the fact that Tizzy ENT is like in the shadows looking up at her, pointing to her, which is ridiculous. And the reason he's doing this is because he's one of these white progressives, white guilted cowards total losers who are like, hey, slay queen, listen to black women are right about everything. So we have a distracting, overweight man in this video in black and white pointing to everything that she's doing, like, oh, she's so right, she got us, she's, oh, just slay queen, slay the narrative, listen to black women, elevate black voices, ain't I so virtuous. It's actually incredibly indicative of the character of the people that we're dealing with, that this guy can't even let this woman speak. He can't even let her dig her own grave, prove her own case to be false, without sticking his face in there for virtue points. Oh, by the way, real quick, before we go any further, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join to get access to my secret video page.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And I want to thank everybody who's listening on Apple's podcasting platform, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Bike number 5603915 was in my brother's possession from St. Nicholas Ave, Manhattan Ave, all the way to First Ave and East 30th Street from the hours of 6:33 p.m. to 7:19 p.m. At 7:19 p.m., they docked the bike.
So right here, we have an unintentional admission that the brother actually turned over usage of the bike. He rides it from the Manhattan Avenue station to this 30th Avenue station and docks it at 7:19. Now, later on, she's going to tell us the video that we saw started at 7:24, and this video, by the way, lines up perfectly with the unredacted receipt of the lawyer. Now, if you guys are confused about this, let me explain. What this young man had was a membership that allowed him to pay a monthly subscription. By the way, thank you to Nate the lawyer for actually going over this in the DMs with me so we could work this whole thing out. That allows him to ride the bike with no additional charge for about 45 minutes. Then, because they don't want you to use this membership to hog up the bikes, they require you to dock it for at least 5 minutes before you take possession of that same bike again. During this period of time, this 5-minute time, you are not paying for the bike. You are not being charged for the bike, and the bike is available to be rented by other people. This is when Sarah comes into the picture. And by the way, it is really unfortunate that her coming into the picture to rent this bike that was open and she had every right to rent has led to harassment of her husband, her personal doxing, and all these other problems associated when, again, she's clearly and honestly in the right in this situation. Now, this young man obviously wanted to use this bike in this way, so he was essentially trying to idle and trying to guard the bike from anybody to use it at this period of time. But to be clear, even though I understand why he was doing that, I get the rationale behind it, he is not supposed to do that. The whole reason that you have to put it up for other people to grab is to prevent people from doing this very exact thing. So what the sister ends up showing us throughout the course of this video is that her brother was unambiguously in the wrong.
Then, with my brother standing next to the bike with his hands on the handlebars, she jumps onto the bike, sits on the bike, and scans the QR code, thus beginning her ride. Mind you, the bike was in my brother's possession at this time.
And she states that the bike is in her possession, but this is just not the case. You cannot scan a bike that is on somebody else's account. The system does not work that way.
So this screenshot is from 6 minutes after the previous ride ended. As you can see, 7:25 p.m. Previous ride ended 7:19 p.m. These gentlemen, these boys, did not steal this bike from Sarah Jane Comrie. She stole the bike from them, then proceeded to weaponize her whiteness.
So that statement right there is something that we're going to circle back to Jen Psaki style and touch on again, because it is really indicative of who is acting in bad faith, who has poor character, who's being nasty, versus who is acting in good faith in this situation. But to be clear, that 7:19 to 7:25 thing is a gap where he did not have possession of the bike according to how this bike rental works. Let's be clear about that.
Video started being recorded at 7:24 p.m., close to 7:25. My brother's ride that was in the previous screenshot starts at 7:25. The initial ride where my brother rode the bike all the way over to this bike dock ended at 7:19 p.m. There were a number of bikes at the bike rack already there when she arrived. She still proceeded to try to take the bike from my brother. Help, trying to make it seem like these boys stole this bike from her. The bike is on my brother's account. It is not defamation of character if the way that you behave reflected your character.
It's not defamation of character if the way that you behave reflected your character. Again, a completely and utterly stupid statement from a woman not intelligent enough to realize that she just proved unambiguously that her brother was in fact in the wrong. So, we have 4 receipts to go over. We have the receipt from Manhattan Avenue that ends up bringing him to this 30th Avenue station. This is the young man's receipt. He docks at 7:19, relinquishing possession of the bike. Then we have Sarah Comrie's receipt, which is at 7:24. Remember, she said that his receipt, which comes after this, is at 7:25. This is when she took possession of the bike. And if you'll recall, her story is that she goes to the bike, scans it. It is available. By the way, you can only scan it if it is available. 7:24, as confirmed by the unredacted receipt, and she is forced by this young man back into the dock. Now we go to the original video, and guess what we see? At the beginning of the video, she has possession of the bike. This is indicated by this light being on in the beginning of the video. At the 30-second mark, as you can see, again, in their own video and confirmed by the timeline laid out by the sister, you could see the light turns off. This is when he pushed her back in the bike. Note the position of his hand. He is pushing her back in the dock. So this is when he took away possession from her, and at the 40-second mark, you can actually see the light turn back on. This is when he scanned it into his possession. So he 100% took the bike from her. And by the way, as I pointed out in my original video, he took the bike, didn't ride it according to the map, there was no movement at all, and just redocked it again at 7:31. So he forced a pregnant woman off the bike in order to not use it. And this stupid article that ended up being posted that supposedly was going to show how he's such an innocent angel proves that he was doing exactly what I suspected of him doing in the previous video, because what we find out is that there's an additional receipt for after this. Now, as you can see, same exact station, 1st Avenue and East 30th. A ride starts at 7:59 p.m. Then he actually rode the bike in this instance to go to Lincoln Avenue and East 138th Street. So to be clear, in order to support the young man in this instance, in order to back his version of events, in order to back his story, in order to say that the pregnant woman was completely in the wrong, what you have to argue is that he has this divine super right to a city bike that nobody else has that extends for 40 minutes beyond his rental. If you remember,
So this screenshot is from 6 minutes after the previous ride ended. As you can see, 7:25 p.m. Previous ride ended 7:19 p.m.
He docked the bike at 7:19 p.m. Now they have the fight over the bike at 7:24, where she takes possession of it completely legitimately. Then he forces her into the bike rack, takes possession back at 7:25, but doesn't go anywhere and redocks it, probably after she left, at 7:31. This is already a complete and utter violation of what you're supposed to do, but then he doesn't take this bike until 7:59. So essentially, what these people are arguing is that he has this divine super right granted to him by the gods of City Bike to idle and not pay for a bike for 40 minutes of non-use. So anybody who rents that bike on the app, anybody who walks up and tries to scan it, any of those people are not entitled to use that because he wants it, and apparently his entitlement, his privilege, supersedes everybody else's desire to use this shared resource. Now, I said I would touch on something else, and I will touch on it, which is this statement right here, because it really pisses me off.
Previous ride ended 7:19 p.m. These gentlemen, these boys, did not steal this bike from Sarah Jane Comrie. She stole the bike from them, then proceeded to weaponize her whiteness.
So if the dopey big sister in this instance would have came out like Sarah Comrie, who didn't want to smear the name of the young man involved, she just wanted to clear her own name and said, hey, look, my brother's not a City Bike scammer. He's not somebody who's trying to steal bikes from City Bike. He was just trying to reserve this. It's a common practice. I know you're not supposed to do this, but this argument got out of hand. That would be perfectly fine. I would say, you know what? Leave it alone. it's over. She came out as reasonable because all we really had were race hustlers making up a narrative, going after an innocent woman, and her trying to defend herself. But instead, she comes out and viciously smears her as a racist and says she tried to weaponize her whiteness in order to get this bike, when in reality, she had every right to get the bike, and her brother forced the pregnant woman off the bike just so he can idle it for 40 minutes. Nobody's allowed to touch it because her brother has God-tier rights to the bike, according to her, to have it in park in the docking station, available to rent for everybody, but nobody's allowed to take it for 40 minutes. So this woman is absolutely horrible, malicious, nasty, vicious, and of course, she doesn't grant any grace to the person at the center of this, the 6 months pregnant woman. And once again, you have all these people talking about how Sarah Comrie's behavior is bad as she's being forcibly assaulted in order to get a rentable bike that this kid has no right to, when in reality, the only bad behavior we see is from this young man. Now, it could have just been he was trying to idle it. Whatever. I'm sure that's totally fine. Like, let's say you get out of a cab, you decide to go up for 5 minutes, you come back down, and you try to get back in that cab. You didn't have the fare running or whatever, but you get back in and you continue another ride. That's totally fine. Again, you're not entitled to do that, but whatever. I'm not against that. But what this young man did is the equivalent of getting out of a cab, leaving for 5 minutes, coming back, seeing a pregnant woman trying to get in the vacant cab, then grabbing her and tossing her out, and then telling the cab to wait for an additional 30 minutes so he might want to take it later. That is not what you're entitled to do. That is not acceptable behavior. He is 100% in the wrong, and your own receipts and your additional receipts confirm that even further. He docked at 7:19. This woman came up to use the bike. He forces her off of it. He didn't intend to use it until 7:59. On top of that, one of the most amazing things about this is, had this woman done that, had the situation been reversed, they would have called that white entitlement. They would have called that Karenicity. They would have said that City Bike should ban her for trying to evade this policy that's specifically designed to prevent people who aren't paying for use because they have the monthly subscription from abusing the monthly subscription in this way, and they would have asked for her to be banned from the service. Nobody's calling for that. Nobody's calling for him to do that, even though that is an obvious terms of service violation. He's obviously abusing the system. Again, assaulting a pregnant woman because you want it to dock and nobody to be allowed to rent it so you can continue to use it for free 40 minutes later, or not for free. Again, he has the membership, even though it's a reduced fare membership, is not what you're supposed to do. But it gets even worse. In the article, which by the way doesn't identify him, doesn't identify the mother or the sister because they're allowed to have their privacy, they complain about him being defamed. Again, nobody even bothered to look up his name, and by contrast, NBC News went to this woman's house, showed her building, showed her door on screen, banged on her door to harass her. By the way, she had to vacate the premises due to the harassment, and then told her neighbors that she was an evil white racist just so the neighbors would hate her because she refused to talk to them.
Civil rights attorney Ben Crump tweeting, "This is unacceptable," and she grossly tried to weaponize her tears to paint this man as a threat. This is exactly the type of behavior that has endangered so many black men in the past. No one answered at the woman's Brooklyn apartment or returned our calls for comment. This woman lives in her building.
That woman lives in this building with me?
No such harassment has been directed toward the young man, who is identified through a pseudonym as Michael. And this whole article is whining about how, oh, he's an immigrant and they're so poor and they're such innocent angels. And this one portion in it specifically just makes me laugh. It's so amazing. I just have to read it for you. He is in a group called City Bike Angels that sends out free stuff to people who have accumulated a certain amount of points. My brother has been a frequent city biker since 2020 or 2021. Yeah, that's right. The mom, quite literally, in this stupid article, says that her brother is a city bike angel, an angelic figure for City Bike. Therefore, he has the right to assault a pregnant woman, force her to dock in order for the bike to idle for 40 minutes. Oh my God, the City Bike Angels, when you see them coming, just know and get your heart warmed up for the assault that they're going to inflict on a pregnant woman. It's so stunning, so brave, so beautiful. Oh, golly gee willikers, don't touch the bikes that they're nearby because they have a god tier right to them. And if you ever try to get home as a pregnant woman, we're going to ruin your life because, you know, every time a pregnant woman is assaulted and forced off a city bike, one of the city bike angels gets their wings. Oh, you could see the halo in the video. Golly gee willikers. But of course, it goes one step further, and now they set up a GoFundMe because they're entitled to welfare in order to pay for the brother's God-given super tier right. He has the platinum diamond combination assault a pregnant woman membership to City Bike in order to fundraise. And by the way, I want to note that it's around $50,000 now. They're asking for $120,000 because he should be rewarded with $120,000 for robbing a woman of the City Bike, which, by the way, was proven by the sister. I understand it's alleged at this moment because he hasn't been convicted of the crime, but on video it's proven by the sister. The article gives additional receipts that prove this to be true. And of course, they continue to defame Sarah in the video that you see by name as they remain anonymous. We are assisting the family of the young man. Again, he gets the privilege of not being named. None of the family gets named. Who Sarah Comrie, again, put her name in this, assaulted over the City Bike. Her supporters and the right-leaning media have propagated a narrative that she was the victim. No, you proved it beyond any shadow of a doubt with your stupid TikTok video, and then you proved it even further with the receipts that showed that he thinks that he has a divine right, a divine entitlement to hold down a bike for 40 minutes without paying for it and block anybody, even a pregnant woman, using physical force from taking it. They have worked diligently to defame the young man, his acquaintances, and his family in order to portray her as the victim. However, only one journalist interviewed the family and the young man. The family requires assistance to bring this tale to light and defend themselves against false accusations. Due to safety concerns, their identities and that of the young man, who is a minor, have been concealed. The funds will be distributed directly to the family. We are merely facilitating the situation. Any fees not used for lawyers will go to the family. Attached is the interview where you could read his side of the story for the first time. This is quite literally why I have the clip of Anna Kasparian demanding the money. Let's roll it.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
So they're claiming that their anonymous son, who is allowed to remain anonymous, who the media never even tried to out, is being defamed as they're defaming this woman. They're also claiming that they're entitled to $120,000 because the son assaulted a pregnant woman who had every right to the bike, called her names, swore at her, and all that, and therefore he's entitled to $120,000. That's the initial goal. Give me the money, as Anna Kasparian would say.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
But to make matters worse, they defamed this woman in the post by name as they want the privilege of remaining anonymous. So they not only have a god tier right to a city bike, to a rentable bike when they're not paying for it, when it's not reserved under their account, they claim a god tier right to assault a pregnant woman who wants to rent it justifiably, but they're also claiming that they're entitled to money, and by the way, all the money's going to go to them, and whether they decide to use any of it for lawyers or not, don't worry about it, just give them the money.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Unbelievable. And need I remind you that GoFundMe has terms of service that supposedly prevent people from raising money on their platform that are accused of violent crimes. However, they're letting this one go. And if you had to bet, the chances of Sarah Comrie, who unambiguously is in the right, actually getting her GoFundMe deleted versus this one are obviously exponentially higher, but we're supposed to pretend that this is normal behavior. We're supposed to pretend that we're absolute idiots who can't read the receipts. We're supposed to pretend that the abstract notions of this young man and his group of friends' possession somehow supersedes the fact that he did not have possession of this bike, and that idling a shared resource for 40 minutes is a rude move that is not indicative of participating in society in a functioning way. But no, all that needs to be set aside, and you need to give them the money.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Insane, absurd. Thank you so much for writing this stupid article, woman who blocked me on Twitter before the article launched, because you know I've been taking you down step by step by step, because you have proven once again, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that he was clearly and obviously abusing the city bike system, did not have possession of the bike, and he did take the bike from Sarah. Now, he's not a city bike scammer. He was not trying to take the bike from City Bike or anything like that. All of those Reddit posts related to scams, set that aside, because what we have in this situation is somebody who is just trying to not pay for time they weren't using the bike and got angry that a pregnant white woman dared, after a 12-hour shift, come up and try to use the bike. They doxed this woman for this. They doxed her husband. They scared her out of her apartment. They've launched a harassment campaign, and now they're not stopping. Their own GoFundMe is defamatory against her. They need to be sued. Now you have to go after the family because they're coming after you. They're harassing you. They're accusing you. Rather than just trying to diffuse the situation, they have absolutely no character. They're pretending that they're the victims of some evil white racist campaign started by this pregnant woman, because that's exactly what a physician's assistant wanted to do. She wanted to leave the freaking hospital, go over to these kids on the bike, and just smear them and destroy their reputation, because that's supposedly how evil white people are. Disgusting in every possible way. Shameful. They shouldn't get a dime. The fact that it's up to $50,000 is a mark against us on our culture. But hey, that's where we are. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the bike Karen scam continuing. Till next time.